Jones. I teach elementary school math, and welcome to my channel, Miss Math Jones. Today we're going to be working on third grade, Eureka, Module 3, Lesson 16 homework. Let's get started. The objective for our homework today is to identify patterns in multiplication and division facts using a multiplication table. So we're going to be keeping our eye out for patterns today. Let's take a look at 1A. It says write the products into the chart as fast as you can. Notice the chart looks like a really big ratio table, and all of the numbers are on here together. So first, let's start with our factor of 1, and we're going to be writing our product into the table. Remember, in multiplication, the two numbers that you multiply are your factors. The answer is the product. Let's start with the 1 column. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 8 is 8. We've completed our 1 column. We place all of our products into our 1 column. Now we're moving on to our 2 column. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 2 is 10. 6 times 2 is 12. 7 times 2 is 14. And 8 times 2 is 16. We've completed our 2 column. Now we're going to move on to our 3 column. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 3 is 12. 5 times 3 is 15. 6 times 3 is 18. 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 3 is 24. We've completed our 3 column. Let's move on to our 4 column. We'll start with 1 times 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 4 is 20. 6 times 4 is 24. 7 times 4 is 28. 8 times 4 is 32. And we've now completed our 4s. Now we're moving on to the 5 column. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 5 is 30. 7 times 5 is 35. And 8 times 5 is 40. We've now completed our 5 columns. Now let's move on to our 6 column. 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 6 is 24. 5 times 6 is 30. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 6 is 42. And 8 times 6 is 48. We now have our 6 column complete. Let's move on to our 7 column. 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 7 is 28. 5 times 7 is 35. 6 times 7 is 42. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 7 is 56. Now we've completed our 7 column. Let's move on to our 8 column. 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. 5 times 8 is 40. 6 times 8 is 48. 7 times 8 is 56. 8 times 8 is 64. We've now completed our 8 columns. So your entire multiplication table should be complete. Now we're able to go ahead and move on to the next part of our homework. Okay, so for number 1A, we had to completely fill in the multiplication table. For 1B, it says to color the rows and columns with even factors yellow. All right, so first of all, let's talk about what an even number is. Okay, so an even number is any number that can be exactly divided by 2. Even numbers always end up with the last digit as 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Now, if you're saying, well, Ms. Jones, all of the factors, which are the numbers that are at the beginning of the rows and the columns, they're single digit numbers. There's only one digit. So if there's only one digit, then the digit 2, 4, 6, or 8 is the even number. So let's start with the rows. If you have a yellow crayon and yellow marker, you can use that to color in the rows and the columns. If you don't have a yellow crayon or a marker, just use your pencil to shade it in. That's fine. So let's look at all the rows. Now, we're going to start with row 1. Is 1 an even number or an odd number? Look at your rule. Now, an even number, remember, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. And an odd number, if you look at the rule, it's 1, 3, 5, and 7. So is 1 an even number or an odd number? 1 is an odd number, so we will not color row 1 yellow. Now let's look at row 2. Well, according to the rule, 2 is an even number, so we're going to color the whole row yellow. And not only do we have a 2 row, right, but we also have a 2 column, which means we need to also color the column with all of the factors of 2 yellow. So we're going to color the row that starts with 2 yellow, and we're going to color the column that starts with 2 yellow. Row and column yellow. All right, well, let's talk about row and column 3. Is 3 an even number or an odd number? If you said odd, you're correct. So we will not be coloring row 3, and we will not be coloring column 3. Let's look at number 4, row number 4. Is row 4, or is the number 4 an even number or an odd number? If you said even, you're correct, which means we're going to color all of the numbers in row 4 yellow, and we're going to color all of the numbers in column 4 yellow. So all of the numbers in row 4 are going to be yellow. All of the numbers in column 4 is going to be yellow. Right, let's talk about row 5 and column 5. Well, is 5 an even number or an odd number? 5 is an odd number, so we're not going to color row 5 or column 5. We're going to leave that blank. Let's talk about row 6. Is 6 an even number or an odd number? Look at your rules. 6 is an even number. So the row that starts with 6, all of the numbers on that row are going to be colored yellow. And after we finish coloring in row 6, we're going to color in column 6. Up here at the top, start here, go down. And we're coloring all of the numbers in column 6 yellow, because all of those numbers are even numbers. All of those numbers are even numbers. Okay, let's look at row 7 and column 7. Is the number 7 even or odd? Those are odd numbers. All of the numbers in row 7 are odd numbers, the ones that aren't colored anyway. So we do not shade in that entire row. No, no, no. Now let's look at row 8. Is 8 an even or an odd number? 8 is an even number, so we're going to color in the 8 and all of the numbers in row 8. They're all even numbers. Now if you say, hey, Miss Jones, there were some rows that were odd and they had even numbers in them, which they did, right? For example, row 7. In row 7, the number 14, the number 28, and the number 42 are even numbers, but the entire row is not even. So by coloring in the entire row that belongs to the number 8, which is even, and the entire column that belongs to the number 8, which is even, that means we were able to only shade in or color in the numbers that were even right along with it, and actually leave the numbers that were not even blank. It's kind of funny how it works out that way. So even though we have rows and columns that have odd numbers as the first factor, right, like 1, 3, 5, and 7, we were able to keep the numbers that were odd completely white, and the numbers that were even ended up being the numbers that were colored in. So we've completed the instructions for letter B. Now letter C says, what do you notice about the factors and products that are left unshaded? Well, we notice that they're all odd numbers. All of the factors and products that are not shaded are odd numbers. Now remember, the factors are the numbers that you multiply together to get the answer or the product. So for example, 3 times 1, 3 and 1 would be the factors, equals 3. The answer of 3 would be the product. Okay? So for letter B, we colored it in. You don't have to do anything. Now, if you want to put a check mark under B just to show, hey, I completed the instructions for letter B, you can do that. And for C, just make sure you write in on your homework, they are all odd numbers, just as you see on my screen. Because all of the ones that are unshaded are all odd numbers. We've completed this part of our homework. Let's go ahead and move on to the next. Okay, let's look at letter D. D says, complete the chart by filling in each blank and writing an example for each rule. Okay, we have rules when it comes to multiplication, when we're talking about even and odd numbers. The first rule says, odd times odd equals blank. Well, what do you think it will equal? Do you think it will equal even, or do you think it will equal odd? It's odd. An odd number times an odd number will equal an odd number. Let's take a look at the next rule. Even times even equals blank. What do you think? Even times even. It's even. So if you said even, you're correct. An even number times an even number will give you an even number. Now the third rule. Even times odd equals blank. Even. An even number times an odd number will equal an even number. Now for the examples, you can write any numbers you'd like, but I went ahead and created some equations that you can write there for examples if you're having a hard time coming up with your own. So for the rule odd times odd equals odd, I wrote the equation 5, which is an odd number, times 5, which is another odd number, equals 25, which is also an odd number. For rule number 2, even times even equals even, I wrote the equation 2, which is an even number, times 2, another even number, equals 4, yet another even number. Let's look at the third rule. Even times odd equals even. For this rule, I wrote the equation 2, which is an even number, times 5, which is an odd number, equals 10, which is an even number. Let's look at letter E. E says, explain how 7 times 6 equals 5 times 6 plus 2 times 6 is shown in the table. Now below that, I said write all of this down. Okay, so 7 times 6, what they did was they decomposed 7 times 6 into 5 times 6 plus 2 times 6, because 5 plus 2 is 7. So that's still going to equal 7 times 6. So since they broke apart the equation, I broke apart the explanation. And all of this you definitely need to write down. Okay? So first of all, let's explain 7 times 6. 7 is an odd number. 6 is an even number. The rule is odd times even equals even. 7 times 6 equals 42. And 42 is an even number. That's the explanation for the first part of the problem of 7 times 6. Now for the explanation for the second part of the problem where it's decomposed. The second part is 5 times 6 plus 2 times 6. So now we're explaining 5 times 6 plus 2 times 6. Let's talk about 5 times 6 first. 5 is an odd number. 6 is an even number. The rule is odd times even equals even. 5 times 6 equals 30. 30 is an even number because in the ones place, there's a 0. I know 3 is an odd number, but when determining if a number is odd or even, you always look at the ones place. If in the ones place, the number is a 0, a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8, it's an even number. And since there's a 0 in the ones place, then the number 30 is an even number. We've talked about the problem 5 times 6. Now let's talk about the problem or the equation 2 times 6. 2 is an even number. 6 is an even number. The rule is even times even equals even. So 2 times 6 equals 12. And 12 is an even number. Notice the 2 in the ones place is an even number. Doesn't matter that the number in the tens place is a 1. In order to determine if a number is even or odd, we use the ones place. Now, if we put those two answers together, 30 plus 12, well, we get 42. And 42 is an even number. That is how 7 times 6 equals 5 times 6 plus 2 times 6 is shown in the table. So everything that's on your screen now should be on your paper. Now, you can pause the video so that you have a chance to write all of this down before moving on to the next part of your homework. Let's look at F. It says use what you know to find the product of 4 times 16, or 8 fours plus 8 fours. So the way that they did this was they took 4 times 16 and they decomposed the 16 using a number bond of 8 plus 8. And so that gave us 4 times 8 plus 4 times 8. Now, if you don't know what 4 times 8 is, that's okay. You can make a quick ratio table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those are counters to use just in case you get stuck when counting by eights. 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. So that means that 4 times 8 plus 4 times 8 is the same thing as saying 32 plus 32. And 32 plus 32 is 64. Okay, let's look at number 2. It says today in class we found that n times n is the sum of the first n odd numbers. Use this pattern to find the value of n for each equation below. The first one is done for you. So in A, they said 1 plus 3 plus 5 equals n times n. Well, 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 plus 5 is 9. And so since 9 is an odd number, we know that the rule is odd times odd equals odd. So what times what is 9? Well, 3, which is an odd number, times 3, another odd number, equals 9, which is an odd number. So we're going to do the same thing for letter B. So if we look at letter B, we have 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7. So let's do 1 plus 3 first. 1 plus 3 is 4. That's done. 4 plus 5 is 9. And 9 plus 7 is, it's a plus sign, people, is 16. Okay, so my equation gave me an even number. Now, it said that in the instructions, the first n should be an odd number. Now, I do know that odd times even will give me even. Can we think of anything to where we can multiply an odd number times an even number to get 16? Let's see. I know that 4 times 4 is 16. I know that 8 times 2 is 16. Anything? I know that, what? Well, if you just have to use an odd number, you could just go the easy route and say 1, which is an odd number, times 16, which is an even number, equals 16, another even number. Or if you want to use two even numbers, you can say 4 times 4 equals 16. So, odd times even equals even, and even times even equals even. We've completed this part of our homework. Let's move on to the. Let's take a look at C. And in C, we have to go ahead and add all the numbers together to get the sum, and then determine what multiplication equation we need to write based on our answer. So we start with 1 plus 3, which equals 4, plus 5 more, which equals 9, plus 7 more, which equals 16, plus 9 more, which equals 25, plus 11 more, which equals 36. Now, if we follow the rules of the first page, then we should have an odd number times an even number that equals an even number. Our answer is definitely an even number, which is 36. What odd and even number, if you multiply them, would give us a product of 36? So let's think about it. Now, if you said 9 times 4, you'd be correct because 9 is an odd number, 4 is an even number, and 9 times 4 equals 36. Now let's take a look at D. I really like D because, and really all of these problems, because they're only given a couple more numbers and you already added up. And this is what I mean. So if you look at C, right? It's 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 11. And if you look at D, it's all of the same numbers, right? Except for you have two more numbers, 13 and 15. So all we have to do is take the total sum from C, which was 36, right? So all this equals 36. And then we just add 13 and 15 when we try to find the sum for letter D. So first, let's do 36 plus 13. 36 plus 13, 6 plus 3 is 9. 3 plus 1 is 4, so we added in 13. Now we're going to take that sum and add 15 more, so we have 49 plus 15. 9 plus 5 is 14. Carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6. So our answer is 64. Now, we have to think about what equation with an odd number times an even number would give us 64. What equation with an odd number times an even number would give us 64? Let's think about it for a moment. Okay, so if we're forced to use the rule odd times even equals even, then I'd have to do really 1 times 64 equals 64. If I use the rule even times even, though, then I could do 16 times 4 equals 64. So those are two equations that you could write. An odd times an even equals an even, and an even times an even equals even. Let's go ahead and move on to the last page. All right, now letter E just builds on to letter D, and notice we have all of the same numbers, right? But there are two new numbers joining the game, which is 17 and 19. So we can use our total from the other page, which was 64, and then add 17 and 19 to get a new sum. So we start out with 64. 64 plus 17 is 4 plus 7 is 11. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 1 more is 8. That's 81. And now we have to add in 19. So we have 81 plus 19. 1 plus 9 is 10. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 1 more is 10. So we have 100. 100. Now I can think of a really, really easy multiplication problem that goes with 100. I can think of a super easy multiplication problem that goes with 100. And it involves an odd and an even number. So we have 20, which is an even number, right? And 20 times 5 is 100. So we have an even number times an odd number equals 100. 20 times 5 equals 100. Or you could do 25, which is an odd number, times 4, which is an even number, is 100. So both of those are examples of odd numbers times even numbers, and you getting an even number as the answer. Both of those are great examples. All right, so we have completed all of our homework at this point, every single bit of our homework at this point, and I'm so glad that you decided to go through and make sure that you had everything done correctly. You've done a great job. Congratulations. Lesson 16 homework is complete. I hope this has helped. Have a great day and see you soon.